Right. So today we have a few things to go through. We're going to introduce the speakers, myself and Kayode, my co-founder, who will have join us live as well on video in a second. I think he's already here on video, but we'll have him introduce himself as well. We'll do a quick survey. We'll talk about why setting goals matters. We'll talk about our vision behind TaskStack's goals products. We'll do a demo, and then we'll go into Q&A in case people have questions for us or any ideas or thoughts. And then at the end of it, we'll do another quick survey. And of course, my team has made a special offer for people on the call today. So stay tuned for that towards the end of the session. Okay, so I guess I will start by introducing myself, and then I'll introduce Kayode, and then we'll jump into it. So my name is Sheni, CEO and co-founder at TaskStack. And it is my obviously pleasure to be here with you today. And yeah, I'll be running you through a lot of the content we have today and sharing with you some of the products that we've been working very hard on over the past few months. Kayode, you want to quickly introduce yourself as well?
Sure, happy to. Hi, everyone. My name is Kayode, co-founder at TaskStack as well. Great to have everyone on the call. And I guess Anita's enthusiasm is getting me going, right? I've been seeing all our comments in the chat, so we look forward to demoing the product to you as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Kayode. Hi, Bukola. Hi, Ibrahim. Great to have you here as well. Of course, we have a couple of other members of our TaskStack team. A lot of the shout outs actually goes to them, but Kayode and I will take all the credits because, you know, might as well. So let's start by introducing TaskStack again. I think most of you on this call have either heard of us or have probably interacted with us, but I can see actually a couple of names that have not yet interacted with the company. So TaskStack is the people management platform for high-performing teams. What does that mean in very simple terms? We're building a suite of technology tools that enables organizations of different sizes to improve their employee engagement, capability, productivity, and ultimately performance. If you were to ask the average executive today, what do they care about? Of course, everyone will tell you they care about revenue growth, right? And then the second thing they care about typically is, can the team I have help me execute towards growing that business and acquiring that revenue I see, right? Can my team help me get to the vision I have? And do we have the right systems in place to actually make that happen? So TaskStack's mission and our vision for our company is to enable businesses drive much higher employee productivity and performance. And we think by doing this, we unlock a ton of value for the continent and for the world as well. So there's a whole lot more excitement around the vision. I'll keep it shorter today just so that we can get going with the rest of the agenda. And look, I think sometimes in our culture, they say, don't brag and be humble. Today, we're going to throw that into the trash. Today, we're going to talk about why we are better. Many of you on this call have probably heard of other solutions. When we did a quick survey of attendees joining the call today, something like 40 or 50% of the people that RSVP'd said they don't use any sophisticated tools for goal and performance management, right? They use spreadsheets and other documents and other forms. And then a few others listed different tools. So we thought right out the bat, let's just tell you why we're better. The first thing is we focus on the things that actually matter, which allows us to reduce the complexity of the product. You'll see that as we show you the demo. The second thing is that our platform is really, really easy to set up and also use, which means it's basically plug and play, right? We don't have weeks of implementation or weeks of integration. It really is plug and play. You know, you sign up on TaskStack today. By tomorrow afternoon, you can probably launch your first performance review cycle or your first goal cycle, or get employees on the training platform immediately, right? Our platform is customizable to meet your needs. So we've created some options that allow you to tailor some of the features to your company's needs without going too crazy on tailoring, because then it gets overly complex where even you don't know how to use the platform anymore. So we try to balance complexity, but rather balance simplicity and functionality. We also do, I think, probably one of the few companies out there, not even just across Africa, but globally, that actually truly integrates performance management and learning management. So you can go through the full cycle of performance management and also enable your teams and individuals to build their capabilities on the same platform without leaving. And lastly, you know, you pay for one tool and you get others complementary. So right now, if you onboard on TaskStack Learning, you get performance management for free. If you onboard on TaskStack Performance Management, you get learning for free. And I think that's a pretty unique offer because everybody else charges you, you know, different layers based on what you're using on the platform. We started off with employee training, right? Because we know that across the board, again, one of the things that companies are constantly solving for is how can I develop capabilities within my teams? And so TileStack's learning platform was the first thing we launched. We now have over 350 courses across different areas. We have top operators who have worked across different companies at different sizes teaching these courses. They're bite-sized courses and they enable your team members to quickly get insights that they can apply in their work immediately. We give you things like, an LMS where you can also upload your own content. So your onboarding, some of your manager training that complements ours, you can put on the platform directly. And we give you some tools such as, learning analytics that allow you to see what people are doing on the platform, assign courses so that you can actually assign courses or learning paths to your employees. And like I said, learning paths, which means that you can create a package of courses for people in your company to take. So with this, TileStack has already built a fairly solid learning platform, and we continue to improve on this as we get feedback from our users. And so while we did that, we started from a number of companies that they are trying to connect learning to performance. So employees will get feedback, they'll go and take courses. And the question was, how do we make sure that that person has actually applied what they've learned and they've improved in it? And so that began the fast tracking of our performance management solution. So we launched initially our 360-degree performance review tool. And what that allows the company to do is basically have every employee in the company get a chance to receive feedback from their managers, also have their own self-reflection, and then receive feedback from peers and even those that report to them. So right now you can either do a 180-degree feedback on TileStack where the employee and manager does the feedback, or you can actually get 360 where you get peer reviews and also direct reports. We're launching a feedback tool that lets you give people on-the-spot feedback as well. We'll talk about that more in a different session in the future. And of course, today, very excited to launch the goals module, which enables companies to set, manage, and track goals to drive more transparency and accountability. So more on this, but let's keep going. So let's do a quick survey before we get into the weeds of it, right? And the survey here is very simple, which is everyone on this call obviously cares about goal setting in one capacity or the other. So we're asking you a question that says, what's your company's current challenge with goal setting? And the fifth question says, we have no challenges, we're doing it really well. So we know that there are people that are probably doing it quite well. So we're giving you that option. So pick one or more of the options that you believe represents, maybe the challenge that you're facing today. Hopefully through the course of this session, we will either help you address how we can solve that challenge for you, or at least share our thoughts on ways in which you can do that. So I'll pause there for a minute and give people a chance to vote. If you can't find the voting button, there's a 6-dot grid on the bottom corner of your Google Meet screen. If you click on that, it'll open a meeting tools menu, and then you can click on polls. And when you click on polls, you'll be able to see the poll that's running right now. And then you can click on a response and vote and see which one most applies to you. So of course, for some people, it might be all of these things that are a challenge, but pick the one that you feel is most relevant to your organization today, right? Maybe the most pressing one. And I'll give about a minute to do that, and then we'll keep moving forward. All right. So while that's running in the background, I think I'm beginning to get a sense that, I can see some of the responses already, and it's interesting what we're seeing. So let's give another, 30 seconds. I wish I had a timer that I could, have everybody see TikTok. So the idea is, you can vote now or forever hold your peace, as they say. Okay, Oba, I think we probably have enough votes in the door, so we can keep going in terms of slides. I'll reference the poll in a second as we keep going through the content. And of course, your responses are anonymous, so don't feel like we're gonna put you on blast and share your response in front of everybody. So look, I think what I'm seeing on the polls right now is telling me that somewhere in between tracking and execution is probably where a lot of the challenges are coming from, right? And I think this actually speaks really well to why a platform like TileStack is useful. So let's even step away from TileStack for a second. Why does goal setting matter? Well, the first reason is because just doing the exercise forces clarity about the important things for a company, for a team, and it gets leaders across the company to have that conversation, right? The second reason is because it helps align the company on a specific direction and outcomes. So when you have clear goals, everyone knows which way you're going. It also helps to create a clear connection between individual and company goals. when people wake up in the morning, they have a little bit of clarity about what they are doing and how what they're doing impacts the company's overall goals. And that's a really critical motivation for people to get up. But it also drives accountability, because when people know that they're being measured on specific outcomes, they kind of, can't really hide, if you will. So these are some of the reasons why goal setting is super important. And these are exactly the reasons why, we think it's interesting to have that on the TaskTack platform. However, about next slide, please. We know that today people face a few different types of challenges as well, even just with the goal setting process, kind of what the survey is telling us. And so why isn't goal setting working that well today? We've spoken to, I'd say probably like 100 or 200 companies in the last few months about how they do goals. And we've heard some of the same things echoed over and over again, right? Number one is, honestly speaking, most users do not know how to set goals. Most of our team members do not know how to set goals. In some cases, unfortunately, even our HR leaders don't know how to set goals properly, right? And that's a real challenge. The second one is that sometimes the tools are very complex to set up and also to get started with. So even for the employees or even for the HR person, in some cases, the tools are very complex to use. The manager burden is really high. You find a lot of tools that managers have to approve every single thing. And for a manager who is really busy trying to do many different things, having to approve and request and change and directly edit in many cases is challenging. So you'll see on TaskTack that we put a lot of the power and responsibility on the user and ensure that the user can drive some of the things forward, and managers can spend more time approving, reviewing, or rather less time approving and reviewing and more time on the actual practice of managing people, right? Also, a lot of HR's time is spent collating goals and tracking progress, especially for companies that use forms or sheets. And again, that takes away the strategic lens that HR teams could actually apply to supporting the business. And of course, in most cases, you ask an employee, how does what you're working on drive the companies forward? And it's not very clear. But also on the performance and training side, when employees get trained, it's not very clear how that training then drives that performance. You can't really measure it. So these are some of the reasons why goal setting isn't really working that well today. And these are very much the reasons why we built TaskTack goals, right? Next. So I'll do a very quick overview of how goal setting works today. This is a way to condense what we've seen from literally almost 200 companies into one. And what this will do for us is it basically is a quick segue into our product and why we built the product the way we built it. So I'm going to now share my screen, although I'll take over from you, and I'll just quickly show people, some of the things that we've learned in a spreadsheet. So let's go to this. And if everyone can let me know if they can see my screen, I'll get started. Can I get a thumbs up or some kind of signal that my screen is showing? Super. Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Vinaya. Thank you, Kaide. And thank you, Lisunji. So let's keep going. So right now, in the very simplest form, this is what goal setting looks like. You have some kind of either objective, or some people call it goals, some people call it something else. And then you have some sort of measure of success on that particular objective, right? So you can call these objectives and key results. Some people call them objectives and KPIs. There are many different names, but the principle is that you have something you're trying to achieve, and then you have some other things that measure whether or not you have successfully achieved that thing, right? So in this case, I'm an HR leader, for example, right? And my goal is to create a culture that supports employee growth and satisfaction. And then I have 3 metrics or 3 key results or 3 KPIs that enable me to know if I've actually successfully done that. So one is I want to increase employee NPS score to 70. The second is I want to achieve 80% completion on individual development goals across the company. And the third is that I want to increase participation in our learning and development programs so that 75% of employees have done some kind of L&D programs within this period, right? This could be a quarter, this could be 6 months, based on the company's own cycle. So this is what, at the individual level, people mostly do, right? You can also take this to the team level, to the company level, where you set a company goal and then you basically cascade it down. What then happens next is the employee typically has that discussion with their manager, right? Because they've gotten the company goals, those have been cascaded. The employee has a discussion with their manager, and then they're able to define the goals for themselves, right? And those goals typically would align either to the department goal or to the company level goal. At the simplest form, all you care about is basically, is this goal completed? Is it in progress? Is it not completed, right? At the very simplest form. That's what you care about. And so that's level one. And we've seen companies do this. Again, below this, you'll see a second set of objectives and key results and a third set. For the sake of this conversation, we'll generally skip the second and third because they're basically repetitive. So this is at the very, very simplest level. Now, what some people will now do is say, okay, you know what? I need a bit more complexity around my goal setting, right? Because this is way too simple. It doesn't give me any additional information, right? If someone didn't reach the employee score of 70, I don't know whether what they actually did reach. I'm not sure, why they didn't get there, for example. So what companies might say is, okay, I actually want to add comments to it. I also want to know which company goal this aligns to. So in that case, you have two columns here, right? One column will say, what company goal does this align to? And then I can link it. And then as I update the goals over time, I can also put in comments as to what happened with that goal. So that's one level of complexity that people will add, right? And that gives you a bit more information when a goal is either on track or off track. So that's one lens you can look at it from. Another thing people will do is they'll say, okay, yes, now I have comments, I know what goal it links to, but this completion doesn't really tell me anything. If I see in progress, what does that really mean? So for these companies, they would like to get a little bit more visibility into, perhaps what's the progress as people are executing the goal, what does it really mean? And perhaps how much is this goal worth, right? So there are three little sub goals here tied to this individual goal here. And what are these three worth, right? So now we enter the category of adding progress first, right? So progress shows me at a more granular level, how far have I gone to getting to the final, output I'm looking for. So that's one layer. The next layer then becomes, okay, so, what is this thing worth to me? Like, I have three key results. How do I know which one's more important? If I had to prioritize, how do I know which one's more important than the other one, right? So now people begin to add weights to the key results and even to the objectives as well. So now I know that if I have three objectives, this being one, this being the second, and this being the third, the three objectives usually should add up to 100%, right? Because that's the overall objectives I've set for myself. And so if you add three weights, the greens, you get me 100%. Now, within every objective, I also have key results, and I want to understand how those key results also contribute to the objective. So I want to set weights on the key results. You can see these three key results also add up to 100, right? And so that's the next thing people do. And what this lets you do is when you're looking at the progress of this objective level, it makes it much easier for you to see where people have gotten to. So you say, okay, I'm looking at the individual progress for each key results, and I can now weight them, rather than just taking a simple average, I can now weight them versus the importance level to get me this overall weighted average progress over here. So that's how the next level of complexity goes, right? Now, some people will say, well, an employee can just come and say 45% progress, but what does that really mean, right? I mean, I don't know, like, or 81%, what does that really mean? And so there's an additional layer that you might create of complexity that not everybody uses, but some do, which is, okay, I want to start adding things like the starting points I'm coming from, the targets I'm trying to get to, and then what's my current metric that ties to this particular key result or this KPI, right? And so in this case, you're able to say, okay, for the NPS score, I started at 10, I'm going to 70, and then maybe during the month 2 of the quarter, I can update it so I'll say that I'm at 45 now because I've actually run the employee survey. I'm at 45. Or people are doing development plans that they've gotten in the new year, and now I'm at 65%, and next time I'll be maybe at a higher number. And so this then allows you to calculate the progress directly from the targets versus the current, right, and versus the starting points. And then again, that same thing allows you to then see for the overall objective, what's the progress. So these are just different levels of complexity. There's some companies that actually have a trust but verify mentality where they say, I actually don't trust people. So even if all three of these key results are 100% completion, I still don't trust you. So they want to put an objective, a measure to the objective. So they will actually go and say, for this culture, I'm going to put something as my starting metric, my target metric, and my current metric. We've only seen that happen in very, very rare cases. And so we won't spend a lot of time on that today. If that happens to be your situation, the TaskStack platform can also cater to you. So this is really how goal setting works today. And the final thing people are looking for ultimately is after all the goal setting has been done, after all the check-ins and putting in the inputs, the goals, progress, how far I've come, comments and status, there's a final number that gets you to have an idea of how the employee's overall performance versus their goals is. And that number is simply the weighted average calculation of the progress on each of the objectives and key results, weighted by the weight that we have assigned in the beginning. So for those that use Excel, I've seen all sorts of very complicated Excel spreadsheets. This is what you should be doing, actually. This is the simplest, easiest to understand for your team members version of this, right? But you can see that this is actually quite complex because for one person, maybe it's easy to track this. When you start to go to 2 people, 20 people, 30 people, 50, 100 people in the organization, you now have different tabs for each person. I have to jump between tabs, and then things change and the comments becomes very long and the whole formatting becomes crazy, right? So what TaskStack has simply done is to take what you're currently doing in real life and put it on a platform in a way that's intuitive to use and works. Let me see if people understand and follow so far. So we'll go back into the Google Meet and look and see if I can get a couple of thumbs up just to show that this is clear and I haven't confused anyone. And if I've confused anyone, please feel free to raise your hand and I'll let me know that I've confused you. Awesome. Okay, so look, I've used this same, what I'm showing you on the screen right now. This is what I've used at Andela at $50 million in AR. This is what I've used at Bellhub, a $50 million revenue company, Series C. I use this at Bristol, a 50-year-old company with doing $300 million of revenue in Nigeria. I've used this at many other companies. So it's not a thing where it's like, oh, I'm guessing. This works. And ultimately, we've created a lot of complicated ways of doing this, but we need to go back to the basics. The last thing I'll say is, for the most part, when you move this into software, there's a generation of software that existed where it was built on a part of a legacy technology and platform, right? And so there's so many different configurations and so many different buttons you click on and press and everything else. And what we've done is we've basically simplified it. So now that it's clear to you what we're trying to achieve, I'll go to the platform and shows you how the platform basically replicates what I just showed you here. So let's go and join the platform. So I'm going to share this tab instead. And now we're on the TaskStack platform. Okay, so this is literally going to go much quicker than it may go if I didn't show you the Excel spreadsheets, right? When you get to the TaskStack platform, you're going to come to goals. And when you get to goals, you basically see all the previous goal cycles you've created in the past. Now, because we do a lot of demos, we've created a bunch of different cycles that basically allow you to get to different levels of complexity so we can show the demos to prospective customers, right? The first thing people might do here is go to manage settings. And on the manage settings page, you can change some of the settings that enable you to tailor the platform to your own use case. So we know that some companies do not use the objective and key results nomenclature. We've given you the option to change that. So you can literally change this to KPIs if you wanted, type KPIs, and it will change to KPIs. And everywhere on the platform where an employee would have seen key results, it will show KPIs instead. You can type in targets there instead, it will change key results to targets, right? The second thing is reminders, which means you can remind employees to come on the platform and update their goals, whether it's once every week, once every 2 weeks, or you can say, actually, you know what, we don't want to do any reminders at all. Or you can have a custom schedule, for example, every month during the first week on Thursday. And then you can change the goal visibility, which means should people be allowed to create private goals, which is just viewed by them and their manager or their reporting line, or should it be viewed by everybody across the company, which are public goals. And then lastly, you can do these advanced settings, which basically says when people are updating the goals, for example, what are the statuses they can put in there? If you remember the spreadsheet I had in progress, I had completed. So basically, as people update the goals, what are the different states that the goals can exist in? And this final section here is around categories. We know that companies use balanced scorecard, some use OKRs, some use 4DX, and different categories, right? And so what we've done is we've enabled companies, especially those who use the balanced scorecard, to be able to create these categories of goals so that when people are creating those goals, they can assign them to a particular category, and therefore you can have a balanced scorecard view of what's happening on the platform, right? So we're able to, like I said earlier, when I was doing the presentation parts, we're able to create a platform that meets a lot of your different needs. By the way, that is it. As far as settings goes, you're done with settings. Now you can actually go and create your goals. So I'll go back and I'll create a goal cycle just to show you what the goal cycle looks like in terms of creation. So I go to create cycle. Many of you might think this will take us 20 hours. I'm sad to disappoint you and say it'll take 3 minutes if we're lucky. I'm going to put here TaskStack Q1 2026 goals. In terms of cycle period, we're going to create a start time and an end date, right? Start date and an end date. So start date should be maybe January 1st. And then the end date will be March 31st. And then I pick which goal structure I have. So remember, I was showing you the 4 different levels. I'll pop back into the spreadsheet really quickly. And I remember when I started condensing different things, I was showing you that you could do things where you collapse the weights, collapse the progress, collapse the different levels of complexity. So literally what we've done is we've created those options on the platform where you can take simple goals, which just says, was it done or was it not done? You can go to more advanced, and advanced says, you can do progress and status, so you can do the different types of complications around starting points, midpoint, endpoint, things like that. So we don't need to go into that on this call today, but I think the idea is that we allow you to do those things, right? And then you can turn on your auto-calculate. I was showing you earlier that when you update the key results, the objective would auto-calculate as well. So you can do that on the platform today. And then participants, who should be part of this goal cycle. And of course, for most companies, it's everybody. But perhaps you had employees who just started a week ago, and maybe it's too early for them to set goals. So you might skip those people by filtering them out using the started before. But so for the sake of simplicity, I'll just use myself alone in this cycle. That way all my team members that are here don't get alerts saying I've launched a new cycle and added them to it. You come here and you publish. You can save it to a draft, which means it will be considered scheduled, or you can publish right away. And once you publish, it's been created successfully. That's it, you're done. This is how you create a goal cycle. That's the end. That's literally it. Goal cycle has been created. From this point forward, you can then go in and actually put in goals. So like I was saying earlier, you start with company goals. So the company can put in maybe the admin, HR person, or one of the senior executives can put in the company goals on the platform. Company goals typically get cascaded to departments. So you can also put department goals on the platform. And then it goes to individual goals as well. So you put in your individual goals. And then you have direct reports if you're a manager of people. And so you can go to direct reports where you can see the tab that has all your direct report goals. And then we have a tab called org-wide where you'll see all the goals across the entire company and a status that shows you sort of like what's happening in terms of the goals, right? So you can see here participants, alignment of goals to the company, and then the state of goals. So what I'll do now is I'll show you 2 views. One view will be how do you create the goal? The other view will be how do you consume the goal, right? How do you use the goal? So to do this, let's go to a goal cycle that's actually we created just for this demo's sake, and we can move pretty quickly through this. So I'll go back to my goals homepage. I'll click on this demo simple cycle goal. And you'll see here that I had the exact same 3 goals that we had on the previous spreadsheet, right? Set up a new comp and benefit strategy, hire a people officer, and then create a culture that supports employee growth. You can also see that I have the key results that I had on that sheet also embedded in here. So this is my U tab. I get to see myself, the goals I've created that are assigned to me. I can see the goal, I can see the owner, I can see the type, I can see the progress, I can see the category. Again, just some of the same exact things that we put on that tab, right? On the spreadsheets. I can do some filtering as well if I want to filter it. But again, it's my goal, so I'm probably not filtering much. If I have direct reports, which in this case, I have one person on my team that's put in some goals here as well, you'll see I can view for all my direct reports, what goals have they set as well. I'll be able to view the objectives. I'll be able to view the key results, right? Similarly, if I go to department, I'll see department level goals. If I go to company, I'll see company. Actually, let me go to company so you can see that. So it's quicker. So over here, you'll see the company level goals, which are the top executive level goals that we set for the company. If I go to org-wide, I'll see all goals that have been set across the entire company. Anything that's considered a public goal will be posted here. Anything that's a private goal will not be shown here, right? Unless I'm one of the people that can see it as a manager of the person who created that private goal. And lastly, if I go to status, you'll be able to see here, again, like I said earlier, for every employee at the bottom, you'll be able to see what their goal achievement is so far, this percentage at the end of the day. But also you can get some additional intelligence around what people are doing in terms of goal setting, right? So what we believe will happen for most people is if you're a manager of employees, you probably come to your direct reports once a month. You have a session with that employee and you say, hey, Philip, you had these 3 objectives and key results. What's the status? And Philip will show you, okay, this one's at 33%, 67%. This one, nothing's happening here. And you'll be able to engage with Philip around what's happening there. Okay, are you actually hitting the key results? Are they happening? Are there any blockers? What's going on, right? If you're a different company that operates more aggressively, you might do that every 2 weeks, right? And then when you're done with this, you'll be able to essentially go into the status as well as a manager, and it will show you the status just for your teams. So I can come for my team and say, okay, let me just get a overview quickly of everyone on my team right now. What's the overall progress across their goals? Maybe one employee is at 70% completion, another one's at 20% completion. And so I'm wondering, okay, why are you so far behind everyone else, right? So this allows you to have more intelligent conversations with your team members. And of course, over here, you can click on anybody's name here. And again, it'll take you to that person's goals. So I click on Philip right here. I'll go to Philip's goals again. So we also allow you to kind of navigate the platform from different angles so that you're not having to go back to the beginning for every single thing you want to do. Now, if you're an admin at the company or an HR person, for the most part, what you're checking to see is, number one, are people in the cycle? So you're looking at this right here, how many people are actually putting goals in? In this case, 100% of people that are in the cycle have put goals in. So great, yes, awesome. If it hasn't been that way, you can actually then begin to take action. How many of those have goals aligned to the company goals? We did a bad job in this demo. We only have 12% of our goals that are aligned to the company goals, but it's a demo, so obviously it's not real. But you want to have a situation where not 100% are aligned, but you want more to be aligned than not, right? Because there will always be things people are working on that are not directly tied to something the company has said is a priority for that time period. And then in terms of goal progress, you'll be able to see, what percentage of people have completed particular goals versus are still in progress versus on track and things like that. And so as an admin, you can also take a more strategic position with the leadership team to advise them on how people are performing at a high level on their goals, right? Rather than just being more operationally focused. So this is really what would happen. And I think we'll get to Kayode's section in a minute where he'll talk about how this links to performance reviews. But the simple insight here is that we've made it really easy to connect goals and performance management, right? And performance reviews. So people think of them as like one thing, but in reality, they're two different things, right? Goals are the things I said I'm going to do that I have to execute on to drive the company's outcomes. Performance reviews are based on what I've done, what's the feedback from me across the goals I achieved, the behaviors I've exhibited across the company, and the skills I have, right? And then there might be other areas I want to check up on. So what usually will happen is this number right here, this 50%, will basically be the answer to the question, how did Sheni perform against his goals? That's the answer right there. And then you can ask me other questions in performance reviews as well. So that's what you basically do in terms of managing the goals. Now for creating the goals, it's very simple again. You can click on create goals right here. It opens a screen that lets you create goals. On this right side, you can pop up the current cycle you're in, and you can basically get clarity about what goals the company has set on the side. That's company goals. You can go to department goals as well and see what department goals they are. And you can also look at your own goals so you can see what goals you've set, right? Basically. To create the goal, all you do is you come here, you put in the objective. So let me create a new objective. Have a successful goals demo. You can put in the weight of this. In this case, since I'm only putting one goal, I can put 100%. But I put in goals earlier. If you remember, I had 3 goals already. So it's showing me that I've already used all the weights I have on my goals. So in this case, maybe I'll say this has to be worth 0 because otherwise I'll be over limit and I have to go and edit another goal somewhere else. How do I align this to my parent goal? So I'll align this to delivering a world-class people and performance management solution. What's the due date? The due date is today, 27th of November. I think I'm on track for that. It's an individual goal, so you could have chosen company or department. This is individual. I'm the owner. You could have chosen somebody else as the owner. And then category would be under product. And then visibility would be public, so everybody can see it. And then I can put some key results, right? So the key results would be maybe schedule, the demo. Next one will be hold the demo. The third one will be get co-founder to buy you dinner after a successful demo. I know he's here, so you can't tell me you didn't see this. You can either save to draft, becomes a draft, so you can edit later on. You can publish the goal. You publish the goal right here, boom, goes live. It asks you immediately if you want to add another goal or you want to view all goals. So that way you're not having to go back again and coming back to create a new goal. Once I say I'm done, let me view all goals. I go back here, it shows me the org-wide view. I'm like, actually, you know what? Org-wide is great, but I really want to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go to you. And you can see my 4th goal has now been launched over here with my key results. As I update the key results, you can see it updates. So if I click on one of them, I get 33% completion. If I click on 2 of them, I get 67% completion. If I click on all 3 of them, I get 100% completion. I'm done. And now I can say, now that I know that I'm 100% complete, I can go here and tag it as completed. And then boom, finished. That's it. So really, I would love to have spent 3 hours explaining to you how this works. Sometimes when I speak for shorts, when I'm demoing this to customers, I'm like, I need to be able to say more because they're like, people ask me, okay, is this the end? Is this it? This is it, frankly. There's some other things you can do from an admin perspective, right? Of course, you can duplicate goals, you can edit goals, you can delete goals. You can also duplicate a cycle. So let's say you've launched the Q1 cycle, you completed that cycle, you want to go to Q2, you can literally come back and just duplicate this cycle. Click on this button, duplicate, it creates a new cycle. You can edit anything you want to edit, like the dates, the timeline. maybe add a few new people that just joined the company to the new cycle. You launch it, and then pretty much boom, good to go. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we have different complexity levels with the goals, right? So what I can do now is just quickly show you what one of the more complex versions looks like, because what you just saw now was this one where the key results are just a yes/no button. I click on them and I can update. But if you wanted to do a slightly more complex version of it, we could, for example, go to what we call there's a goal cycle that's called Advanced Cycle 1 for us, right? And so over here, if I go to org wide, I'll be able to see a bit more detail, right? So now you can see, if I click on this, I'll be able to see that there's progress and there's categories as well for the sub key results. If I go to Advanced Cycle 2, which is one of these ones over here, let me find one that already has goals in its. Let me go to this one actually. If I go to Advanced Cycle 2, I'll be able to see a bit more detail. If I go to org wide, so I'll be able to see a bit more detail here. Actually, you know what? I'm confusing people. Let me just stop that. Essentially, you can see more detail where you can see things like the starting point, the targets, the currents, and as you're updating those things, the goal gets updated automatically as well. So without further ado, I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions or comments on this so far before we kind of take a pause and then go into the performance review side. And if that was clear, again, please give me a quick thumbs up so I can see that people understood and are following, and it made perfect sense. Awesome. So I guess maybe I'll quickly jump back into the slides, Oba, and just say one last thing, right? And I can actually share my screen. Actually, why don't you share screen, because you're going to keep sharing screen. So you can pop back into the slides real quick, and then we'll keep going. And I guess the last thing I would say is on this slide here around the vision behind TALSTARK goals, it's really the last 2 points on the slide, which is simple, powerful. In one platform, employees can set their goals. They can see what others are working on. They can see what the company's goals are, so they don't have to go look for it in a document somewhere. They can always have their eyes on what the company's priorities are, as well as what their priorities are, and really shift away from trying to figure out how to use the platform, instead to figuring out how to drive execution, which is what every one of us on this call cares about the most, right? So I'll pause there. Let's keep moving, and then we'll get to Q&A soon enough. Kaide, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Jenny. And thanks, everyone. I'll quickly run us through what a performance review tool looks like. But before I jump right in, just a quick question for everyone on the call, and you can just use a thumbs up, right? If you agree, after just like, working through the goal model with Jenny, if you agree that this is probably one of the most simplest and most beautiful tool you've seen, you can just give a thumbs up. And if you don't agree, you can give a thumbs down. We're happy to take it. Okay, I see lots of thumbs up, right? See, I was telling Shani that in my previous company, I hated every time we had to do performance review, either as a direct report or as a manager, because the tool we're using at that time, every time that, I like to think that I'm sophisticated, I understand technology, I know how to use products. So when I come across a product that even me I'm struggling with, I'm like, if me I'm struggling, what would the average person out there be doing, right? And so in building this, the goal for us is how do we build the most powerful yet simple and intuitive tool for you? And I'm happy that it seems like we're achieving that. I think as you begin to use the product, I suspect that you'll begin to get a feel of maybe we won't undersold the simplicity and the ease of use, right? So I'm going to share my screen quickly. I'll do a quicker walkthrough just so we have enough time to take questions, because I suspect there might be some questions. So I'm going to run us through our performance tooling system and what it looks like. Before I do that, I'll just say a few things. On the performance side as well, some of the things we've done is, number one, we've tried to make the tool customizable, so it's easy for you to customize your appraisal period, your appraisal system. That's one of the things we've done on the performance side. The second thing as well is that we've just made it super easy, similar to goals. We've made it super easy for you to set up, right? Another thing you can also do is if your company runs a 360 degree type of performance review structure. You can set that up easily on TaskStack by just toggling a button on. And then you also have some detailed analytics that gives you insight into performance across the company. You also, similar to what Shani said about the ability to duplicate. In this case as well, every time you have a new appraisal cycle, you don't have to create it afresh. You just need to duplicate the previous one, and you can edit, add questions, remove questions, add participants, remove participants, and things like that. And so with the tuning systems, with our performance system, which is the goals and the performance review, our hope is that by the end of this call, you will be fully convinced that you need to do it with your spreadsheet, and then spend any other tool that you're using to focus all your time and effort on getting on board on TaskStack. So I'll show us two quick things right now. I'm in the performance review section. This was what Shani demoed earlier, the goal part of the product. Just below it, you have the performance review, right? I'll show you two things. One, I'll quickly just create a performance review cycle just so you get an idea of how quickly you can set that up. And the second thing I'll do is I would show you an existing performance review cycle that we run internally, again, it's a demo, so ignore the results. Don't be looking at people that say, this guy's not performing. It's a demo cycle, right? And I'll show you what that looks like as well. So I'm going to start out with just creating a cycle. Again, there's a button here that just says create cycle. So here we can call it, let's call it anything, TaskStack. Let's just call it TaskStack internal test. 2. Right, you can add a description. Everyone should ensure they complete this on time. Right, now, what I said earlier as well, you can decide you want to enable upward and peer review, which is 360. In this case, I'll just click on the enable button, which means now it's going to be 360. So people will be required to pick peers that's going to review them. Now, if your company runs just like a direct review system, you don't need to toggle this on. I'll click save and continue. Right. The next I get to see is timeline. So I can set a date for when I want this to kick off. I want this to kick off on Saturday. I want people to select their peers by this date. I want people to complete their peer and upward review by this date. I want people to complete their self-review by this date. I want managers to complete their reviews by this date. And I want the review and final submission to end by the end of the month, next month. Now, there are a few settings here as well you can toggle on and off depending on your structure internally. So number 1 says, right, do you want managers to be able to view an employee's peer, upward, and self-review before writing their own review? Right now, some companies might say, looking at this might create some level of bias. No, we don't want it. So again, you can leave it off. In this case, I'll leave it off. Now, the second says, enable managers to approve or reject peer reviewers. Yes, I want managers to be able to see who their direct reports are picking as peer reviewers. Now, in this case, the manager might believe that the person I'm picking, or my manager might believe the person I'm picking doesn't have enough context to be able to review me properly. So they might decide they want to decline that person and ask me to pick another person. So yes, I want managers to be able to do that. And then the last sentence says, do you want to keep the name of upward and peer reviewers anonymous? Now, for large organizations, you might feel like it's important that people don't know who is giving the peer review. Internally, we're all for candor and openness, so everybody sees everything. So in this case, I'll toggle this on. That means I'll toggle this off rather, so we don't keep names anonymous, right? We want to see everything. Who is writing what about who, right? So we save and continue, right? Now, similar to what Shani did with the goals, you can select who's going to participate in this cycle. Now, just so Shani gets a lot of emails, I'm going to add Shani's name to this, right? So you get a notification. And I would continue. You can exempt people as well. And if you want to click everybody in the company, it's just a simple button. By clicking this, it selects everybody in the company, right? And you can uncheck it as well, right? So I would click on, so save and continue. Now here, I don't have to set up the questions, right? So the first question is an overall rating question, which is back to that score Shani showed on the goal setting to say, this is the best overall score. So I can put a simple question as, how did you perform overall this quarter, given that Shani set up that quarterly thing, right? And I can also do a few things, right? I want this to be a rating percentage, right? Which is the percentage score, because the goal setting was a percentage score. I could enable additional comment, which is I want this person to add more context, I could also make that context required, right? So I enable the required button. So that means the person is required to add additional comments. I can add more questions. I'll just add one more question, right? And I'll make this question a multiple choice question. How would you, ignore my spelling, how would you describe your performance, your performance this quarter? And I can put a number of options, say exceeded goals, hit goals, underperformed, and then I'll put the last one as well. So, right, same thing, I can enable additional comments and make it required. Now, something you also can do is you can rearrange questions by dragging and drop, by just moving these questions in different, so you can rearrange the questions to fit whatever structure you want them to fit. Now, to the right panel here, we also have a guide on how to sort of like determine the right questions for you. Now, so in this case, I'm done adding questions. I will just click save and continue, right? It then asks me, do I want to use the same questions for that I used for the self-review? Do I have to use that same question for upward review? I can say yes or no. If I say create new questions, it allows me to create a new question for upward review. In this case, I'll say use same questions, save and continue. It then asks me another question. Now to use the same question for peer reviews, I can create a new set of questions or use the same questions. In this case, I use the same question, save and continue. And then it shows me a review of all the things I've done, the dates I've selected. Now, what I can do here is edit each of this information if I'm not happy with them, right? I can edit the questions, I can change the questions. But in this case, I don't want to do any of that. So I'm just going to publish. My performance review would go live on the schedule. Now, I didn't select it today, so I scheduled it for a future date. It's going to go live on that date, and people will get an email on the date that they've been obviously required to complete a performance review cycle. They'll be able to log in and answer questions and do that. Now, the second thing I would show you is just an existing cycle that's ended. Now, this is what it looks like when you're done, right? You get a sense of overall rating, the number of your people in your company that scored on a particular benchmark. You can dig into each person. So in this case, I can see that Oba finished his performance review. He completed it. He rated himself 80%. His reviewer, which happens to be his manager and some guy named Karade, also completed his review and rated him 60%. Again, this is fictitious, so Oba is a performer. So upward review, he didn't get any upward review, and he didn't get any peer review, right? So I can also dig into this particular report by just clicking on it. Now, by clicking on it, it opens up the questions that was asked, how Oba rated himself, and how his manager also rated him. Now, we've done something interesting, which is create this side-by-side view, which in a single glance, you can get a sense of what this person is saying versus what their manager is saying without having to start scrolling or clicking multiple buttons. As by also clicking peers, you also get to see what his peers are saying. In this case, you didn't have a peer review, so it's empty, right? And that's how CalStack works. Now, I can also filter and say, show me direct reports. I can see everybody that reports to me and see how they rated themselves and see their performance review. I can see only mine as well by clicking on you. I also can see all the requests I received as well. So again, these are requests for me to review people. These are the requests I sent for other people to review me, right? And these are the requests I have to approve, right? So I also can see all that at a glance, right? I also can decide to export this data. So maybe want to export it and use it for something else in future, I can do that, right? So that's how a performance review cycle runs on CalStack. And you can set this to run annually, biannually, quarterly, or whatever cadence you choose to. At this place, I will pause and hand over the mic back to Shani.
Thank you, Kai. So we just went through the process of creating goals at a company, managing those goals, tracking those goals, having the conversation with your manager and team around those goals, and also then getting to a point where you have enough information to write a performance review for that employee, or in some companies, they call that performance appraisals, right? The next step usually then is, I know from speaking to a lot of companies and also, having been an operator, you then start to say, okay, what are the outcomes for employees? So people need to be promoted, some need to be rewarded, some need to be, given more responsibility, etc. And you can basically begin to take those actions. And again, we're enabling you to focus on the more strategic things, which is, now that I've been able to do performance reviews in a week instead of 6 weeks, I can now focus more on how do I then use that information to do other actions that are more strategic for the company. Of course, one of those actions is also employees need training. And so you can literally on the platform jump into the learning part of the platform, click on learning, and then create a learning path. Some of your learning paths will be tailored to particular individuals. Maybe I need to improve my communication or problem solving. And so maybe I have a learning path for myself. Or maybe I'm a new manager and it's clear that I seem to be struggling with managing people. So you might create a manager learning path for me. Or some of them might be, team-wide or even org-wide, where you want to put more people into one learning path so they can learn together. And so literally on the same platform, do the goals part, do the review and feedback part, and then jump into the learning part, and then have them become an ecosystem that drive each other. And all of that can be done on TileStack as of today. So we'll pause there and take any questions that people may have. That way we can answer any burning questions you have. And then we'll do a quick final survey. We'll talk about our special offer, and then we'll let everybody go back to the wonderful world of work. Or I guess it's 5 o'clock, so some people might not be working after this, but some of us are. Any questions at all? You can either type it into the chats or raise your hand and ask. It's either everything has been so straightforward, it's so clear, there are no questions, or it's so confusing, you're like, I don't even know where to begin asking questions from. So hopefully it's not the latter. If you don't have any questions and you have comments instead, you can feel free to write your comments, or you can also share your comments verbally if you prefer. And I'll wait for about 10 seconds and then we'll move into a quick final survey to wrap up if there are no questions. Oh, Oladele, great question. So your question was, does this apply to the balance scorecard as well? Can you ask your question actually verbally so that we can understand a bit more about what you're trying to find out?
All right. Hi guys. Good to see. And all right, quickly. So I just wanted to be sure. I think I was walking actually while you were presenting, so I missed a bit. But I realized that a lot of the examples were around OKRs, and I just wanted to know if the BSC, because I think in the emails it did say that it could be used for either. If that was sort of considered as well in this. That's my question.
Okay, I think great question. And so I'll answer your question, then I'll ask you to tell me if it makes sense. So what we've done is, and this is when I was sharing the settings earlier in the demo, we've actually created the ability for you to add categories so that you can see goals. You can create goals across categories. So basically that's what Balance Scorecard does for you, right? We've actually seen people use different labels. I think with Balance Scorecard, in many cases, the 5 general areas or 4 areas you see are financial, customer, maybe like operations or processes, and then learning and growth. I think those are the typical 4 you probably see. We've also seen companies add or subtract from that list and create different ones, right? So what we've done is rather than fixing the settings that says there are only 4 you can use, we've actually allowed you to add your own categories and also remove. So for example, if I wanted to add a new category, I could add one here. Let's say I wanted to add learning and growth. I can just type that in, click on add, and you see it's there now. So when an employee is now setting goals, let me save this and I'll show you where it comes into play. When a company or employee is setting the goals, I go to create, not create cycle, sorry. I go to a cycle itself and I want to create a goal in that cycle. One of the things I can do is choose the category that goal belongs to. You can see now learning and growth has now appeared. So I can choose the category. So if you're a company that does Balance Scorecard as your main way of operating, you'll be able to choose a category. Now, when it comes to how you see what is happening then, if I go to let's say I go to myself, you can see we've created 2 different views for you here. The first view we've created is how can you see your goal status based on the status, completed, in progress. So let's say I made this one in progress, for example. You'll see now that it's showing me that I have 50% of my goals. If I make another one in progress now, you see it'll adjust that again, right? So you can basically have one view that just shows you the status of your goals overall. The second view below here actually shows you the balanced scorecard perspective. So basically, it means that of all the goals that I considered financial, 0 have been completed. Customer, 0% have been completed. But for product, I've gone to 100%. And that's because I literally marked product as 100% here. If I had done 2 out of 3 key results completed, you can see now product is now 67%. So we give you a balanced scorecard view as well, actually. So you can actually look by category to see the completion for each of the different areas. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely. Pretty cool. Yeah.
Thanks for asking. Chisom, please go ahead. And by the way, I believe that it's pronounced Chisom, not Chisom. Am I correct?
You are.
All right.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Chisom.
So two things I wanted to clarify. First, how does the onboarding work? Because I know we didn't really mention it, and the raw file for a lot of companies that are using BSC is often on Sheets or Excel. So how does it work? Because I know people want to save time. They don't want to have to go to start typing one after the other, for especially considering the number of employees. So that's one. Now, secondly, on the BSC templates, there's an aspect that shows the basis for the goal, and then there is also the other aspect that shows the target. So how does that? Because that's also one of the challenges. I was wondering where all those fit in, because that is where you're seeing exactly what it is, even beyond the numbers and the percentages. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Thanks for asking that. That's a great question. So let me, I'll answer both questions one by one at a time. I'll answer the second question first. So Oba, we can probably, okay, I'm going to share my screen again. So I'll answer your second question first. Let me go back to show you something. So I'd mentioned that we have different levels of complexity that you can choose from when you're creating a cycle. If I go to create cycle and I come to this section here, you see we have simple versus advanced goals. On the simple goals, there's a little support suggestion thing here that says simple goals are easier to set up. Blah, blah, blah. On the advanced ones, okay, provides more detail. Okay, so now we have 3 levels of advanced goals. One says that my objectives and key results are only measured by progress and status. The second says that I can measure my key results by metrics, progress, and status. And the third one says I can measure both the objectives and the key results by metrics, progress, and status. So the metrics one is probably the one that you're asking for clarity on, like, how do I see starting point, targets, end point, all that, right? Am I correct to say that?
Yes, to an extent, yes.
Okay, what part am I missing, just so that I can answer it very well?
So I think I might need to use an example. So if maybe the KPI that's being tracked, no, not the goal now, but maybe one of the KPIs is to track maybe profitability, for example, and then you're saying that the target is about 2% increase, and then the basis for that KPI is that you want to check the percentage increase in maybe average gross margin. I don't know if that is if that provides the context.
Okay. Yes, I think actually it actually does. And it does. It does. That's helpful. The biggest thing about goals is that the way we define the goals has to make it really easy to measure, right? Because you can write every goal in 3 different ways. For example, if my company currently does 80% gross margin and I want to get to 85% gross margin, I can define this in a few different ways. I can start by saying increase gross margin by 5% points. I can say grow gross margin to 85%. And I can say, improve gross margin. So it can be a yes/no answer. Where I say the actual thing says grow gross margin from 80 to 85, and is it a yes or no? So there are literally three different ways of defining the same metric. One is basically saying, I want you to show me the point increase The second is saying, I want you to show me the end states and actually put the end states as a number. The third is saying, can you verify that I reached this end state? And the answer is either yes or no. So the goal setting itself is how you define what you want to put into the platform, right? We kind of spend a little bit of time advising companies on what we think are the best practices, but that's obviously a thing that companies have to do. But when you actually have defined that well, then the platform actually lets you do it well, right? And what I mean by that is if I go here, so I'll go to my cycle 2 and I create the goal, you see that when I go to the metrics, the key results, which you call KPIs, right? I can basically say, select type of metric. Is it binary, which is yes, I did it, or no, I didn't do it? Is it a number, which means I went from 10,000 to 50,000, or any other number type? Was it a percentage? I went from 80% to 85%. So I can choose which one. Once I choose which one, it gives me a start value and a target value. So I can enter my starting value. So let's say I use percentage. I can say I want to grow my gross margin from 70% to 85%, right? When I save this, when I'm updating the platform later on, when I'm updating my goals later on, I don't just say yes or no, right? I actually will put in the start of the progress, and I can probably show you that as well. I'll put in the progress. So maybe I'll put in, I'm currently at 77%, and then it would calculate that progress on my behalf for me, right? You've moved 50% towards target, or you've moved 80% towards target. So that's how it works in practice. We didn't show it during the demo because just trying to keep it simple, but that exists. So have I answered the second question clearly?
Yes,
Awesome.
you have. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So going to the first question, right, around some people have their content in spreadsheets, and then how do they just basically upload it to the platform? Because when I heard you say onboarding initially, I was wondering if you meant how do you onboard the users onto the platform. But I don't think that's what you mean. I think you mean how do you onboard the goals, right?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So today, what we've designed allows you to input the goals one by one, right? And we've made it really easy to do things like tabs, just to make sure that people are able to navigate it really easy. So if I literally hit the tab button, I'll move through different fields. So right now the job is a bit of a copy and paste job, if you will. One of the things that we're exploring is actually, and this is not a this year issue, the next year topic is with AI, how do you, I don't know if you guys have used like some of the AI browsers out there, right? How do you basically use AI to tell it, hey, take all this information and then eventually can you put in a format that I can upload here? Or directly on the platform, can I chat directly with the platform and it helps me to do everything by itself, right? Without me having to actually upload a spreadsheet directly, right? I can just put everything into a chat bot and it basically places it on the platform for me. So we're not doing the spreadsheet version yet where you can upload things on a spreadsheet. We're actually going to look into it and we'll see whether we're close enough towards being able to deploy AI or we're too far away where we need to do a spreadsheet view. But right now we don't have that option available. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Chisom. Thanks for the questions. They're really great questions. Are there any other questions? All right, looks like we don't have any other immediate questions. So look at the chats to make sure there's nothing else in the chats. All right, so we'll do a quick survey. Thank you all for sticking with us this long. We're going to wrap it up shortly. We'll do a quick survey and then we'll go. So the survey is going to get launched by Ola again, and the survey will be, how likely are you to use the goals feature? So I guess what this question is asking is, if you don't have anything today that you currently use, use spreadsheets or forms or whatever it is, how likely are you to feel like what we just showed you solves your needs? If you currently have something today, yes, we know that it's unplugging things is quite challenging. If for you, that question is more like, how likely are you to go back to your office and be like, oh, I think I have something better for you guys to use than this? And we're just curious to see, how well we did. We're a company that loves taking feedback. If you ask our users, you'll find out that, we are constantly asking people how the experience with the platform is and trying to incorporate that feedback into what we do. So we'd love to hear from you, how we did today. Have we convinced you or confused you? And there's no wrong answer, there's no right answer, right? It's just feedback for us. So we'll just leave it open for a few seconds. So essentially we have an offer for everyone, which is, the idea here is you've been with us today. Today's our first public demo, first real public showing of the product. And you stuck with us for an entire, hour plus. So we'll give you an offer to try the product for 30 days. We usually have a 7-day free trial, but we'll give you for a whole month. So as you go into 2026, you can actually get the tool right now, try for 30 days, use it on your team and see if it works for you. And then that way you don't have to worry about the 7-day free trial. You can have it for longer. So if you want to hit the link bit.ly/30 days offer or scan the QR code on the screen, will give you access and anybody in your company access for the next 30 days, basically through the month of December. And you can get a chance to really play with the tool yourself and see how it works for you. I guess with that said, thank you all so very much for the questions, for the feedback. Thanks for being with us on this journey. We look forward to really continuing to build a set of tools that will enable you. I think I see a lot of HR leaders here, but I also see a few operations leaders. Our goal is to build the tools that enable you to become more strategic and to really focus on how to drive execution of the company, how to drive the outcomes that move the company forward. And so think of us as your partner on that journey. Thank you. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we look forward to talking to you soon.